G'day, it's Professor Joseph Drew here, and I'm here to talk to you about how to harmonise rates, or what most countries call local government taxes. Now, why would you wish to harmonise your rates? Well, the obvious reason, something that most New South Wales local governments are going through at the moment, is following an amalgamation. When two councils get together, invariably they had two different tax rates on their land. And of course, once they become one council, it's only reasonable and just to have one rate of taxation. But some councils may wish to harmonise the tax rates because they've realised that over time the rates have drifted one from another, categories, particularly if you go down the subcategories, and the rates of taxation no longer reflect a just distribution of the burden for the community. In fact, I would say that most local governments in Australia could take a long, hard look at their taxes, and they would probably find that they're desperately in need of some sort of harmonisation or remedial work. So the risks of harmonising rates are pretty obvious complaints, but if you get a true expert that actually knows what they're talking about and presents the information, if you can get your community engaged, the number of complaints are going to be quite muted. If you get a pretend expert that just does some little fiddling on a spreadsheet, well, of course people will react badly. So it's all about who you get to do this. And of course there's a political risk, particularly leading up to election year. I understand why local government people wouldn't want to go tinkering with the rates, but as soon as the election's over, I'd like to think that that's one of the first order of businesses for most local governments, because as I say, if you look around, most taxation systems in local government throughout Australia, there's big differences between categories and subcategories within local government areas that you just can't justify. And this is the thing, this is my question to you. Could you sit down and give all the different rating taxation amounts, taxation rates to a person in your community and justify why they are so different? If you can't do that, well, it's time to harmonise your rates. But most importantly, it's just the right thing to do. It's just the fair thing to do. And you've got to remember, doing nothing could also backfire. Local government area I'm aware of hasn't done their harmonisations from 2003-4 amalgamations. And there's subsets of the community that are paying twice the rate of taxation than others. Well, eventually they're going to realise. And when they do, it's not going to be pretty. So successful rates harmonisation starts with a true expert, not one of these self-professed experts that local governments plagued with, but someone that actually understands the theory behind our taxation system, that understands the moral and economic implications of having minimum rates and having base rates and the like. So it's really, really important to get the right person. If you get the right person, everything runs relatively smoothly after that. You've got to be honest and open with people. That's the only way to succeed in this sort of thing. If you do give people information, clear information, and they see that you're being honest and you're being fair dinkum, most people will give you a fair go. You need to dispel common misconceptions, and the biggest misconception in Australia and local government is that your rate of taxation should have something to do with the services you receive. No. No, services should get paid for out of service fees. The taxation has no bearing on what services you receive. Now, you think about it, you pay your tax in Australia. Imagine if the rate of income tax you paid depended on what services you received from the federal government. Well, I'd be paying next to no tax because I live way out in Moombi in the middle of nowhere, and there is no federal government infrastructural services here. Now, if that happened and you were paying 40 cents on the dollar or whatever you might be doing in Sydney because you did have that infrastructure, you'd be crying foul pretty quickly. Well, the same concept applies to local government. If you're all part of the one local government area, it doesn't matter what services you receive, you all have a moral obligation to contribute towards the community equally, and that's what's called distributive justice. So in order to dispel those misconceptions, though, you need an expert that's prepared to front up to the community, and I did many community forums when I did rates harmonisations, and explain these things clearly. And of course you need more time than what I've got in this short video. And the person needs to be comfortable enough in their knowledge that if someone comes up with something in these community forums that's a reasonable idea, that they'll consider it. And if it's a good idea, they'll change their plans accordingly. And the last thing I'd like to suggest is that you might consider using a citizen jury. I've used them with great success before. I find that people are much comforted by the fact that 12 people selected at random from their community have seen the range of proposals, have spent 4 or 5 hours going into these issues and agree that this proposal is the way to go. People are just comforted, feel more sure that everything's been done right and the good decision's been made if you use that method. It's a hard thing to do. Once again, you need a true expert if you're going to stick them in front of a citizen jury, but it's a well worthwhile thing to do, I think, for the community. My advice is that local government is a moral enterprise. The whole reason for local government is to help people achieve their perfections, help people achieve their ends. Please watch my video on natural law if you haven't already done so. Now, you can't have a moral local government without having a moral local government tax, without having distributive justice, without apportioning the burden fairly amongst everyone. It is important. If you don't do it, it undermines your whole community, undermines the whole justification and legitimacy of your local government. But it's important because it's just the right thing to do, and people need to start doing the right thing more often. So my advice to you is don't delay. I know they've kicked the can down the road again, and they'll kick it down the road again, and it may never happen. You might be like the local government area I was referring to later. But if you do that, you won't be a moral local government. Eventually people will find out and they'll be aggrieved, and they should be aggrieved if they've been paying twice the tax rate of other people in the same local government area for the same services. It's just not fair. So in conclusion, go and get yourself a real expert, investigate all the issues and just do it. It has to be done. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.